Hi, hello everybody. This is Elvira Kalmár, and we are shooting this video for you for the Hack the Future of HR Fest program. My guest is Jacopo Romei today from Italy.
Hi everybody.
And our topic is contracts, extreme contracts and smart contracts. Jacopo, could you explain us very simply what is the difference between smart contracts and extreme contracts?
Okay, so smart contracts are basically contracts which are described in algorithms that cannot be modified. So basically you can enforce the result of a contract in a transaction that once decided, it's there forever and it's executed automatically. Let's assume, for example, okay, once you pay for the car sharing, the car gets unlocked. Yeah. That's a smart contract. Or on the other end, we have extreme contracts, which is a concept I came up with 8 years ago. After my research as a knowledge worker, both as a freelancer or as an entrepreneur, to provide myself better ways to negotiate collaborations with my customers and with my suppliers.
So what would you say an extreme contract is different from a classical workplace contract?
Well, when I started working with classical contracts, again, as an entrepreneur, by hiring people and making agreements with my customers, I spotted problems which were linked basically to my difficulty in defining the exact deliverable when we are basically exploring a problem. I was a developer, but it's true for any knowledge worker. When you explore a problem, when you are paid to explore a problem, by definition, you don't know what you will end up with. And all the traditional ways to make agreements instead rely on the fact that you can absolutely define what is the exact detail of the delivery that you're gonna make in the end. But it's not possible. If you're developing a new software for a new market, maybe inventing something, let's get out of the development space and if you are a novelist, if you're writing a novel, you don't know what the novel will be in the market in which it will be sold. And also the same novel written by Stephen King or written by Ken Follett, it's gonna be a completely different novel. And so you cannot define, okay, tell me what exact novel are you gonna put in the quotation so that I can know what the price will be. If I write you the whole novel in the quotation, the job is done. It's not a quotation anymore.
Yeah, I see. And you see, we're making this video for HR people. And of course, when we are talking about the two extremities, smart contracts, it sounds like this is really a teeny tiny transaction that we algorithmize. And when you're talking about extreme contracts, it might sound that, hey, this is how we contract with externals when we want them to sort of provide some knowledge work for us. And how do you think it might be useful for the HR people?
Both concepts can be very useful in the HR. Let's start from the extreme contract side. I think that the main flaw with traditional contracts even in employment space is that basically all contracts try to map the effort, the cost, the time that you spend in a company. So basically, when you are an employee, I've been an employee for a few years in my life, and I was an employee on purpose to acquire arguments for this context. I was tired of being a consultant and everybody telling me, but you've never been an employee. Now I've been an employee and I know what I'm talking about. You're paid for your time. You're basically paid to be in one place. It doesn't matter if it's remote. It doesn't matter if it's just a longer chain, but you have to be there 8 hours a day at least, and you have to be there and we will think what you will deliver afterwards. This is completely wrong. Knowledge workers have to be there for the value they deliver. And contracts which map the time are not going to enhance the delivery of value. They are going to enhance the permanence of someone in a given space and time. On the other hand, smart contracts are a nice way to map microtransactions. Let's assume that what if, okay, let's make this exercise. What if we could map tiny bits of value that I can deliver as an employee, and by every bit of value that I deliver, I get a part of my compensation. Wouldn't it be easier to define, measure, and deliver value? Yes. Wouldn't it be a safe option because there is a smart contract that enables the counter value, my compensation for a delivery that was certified by an algorithm? Obviously, as a whole, in the whole space of a career, smart contracts don't help. We cannot place a smart contract on a person. Like, okay, in the next 10 years, if you deliver, there will be a smart contract. But smart contracts are a solution in the micro transaction space. So like every task, every single task that you complete, as long as the task is like 4 hours long, I mean, I would love to be compensated and measured on the basis of a smart contract.
Do you think somehow maybe smart contracts or the idea of smart contracts can actually be useful for like assembly work or manufacturing when it's actually measurable what the people completed?
I think it would be easier. To be fair, I want to be, I mean, I have to be fair. I've never worked in manufacturing, so I don't want to talk about what I don't know, but I assume that in spaces in which the delivery, it can be even measured in an exact way, smart contracting gets even more useful, while extreme contracts get less useful. So basically, if you can do the same action every day, if your space of action is well defined, you don't need extreme contracts anymore. But you need the certainty of a transaction defined by smart contracts.
And as I'm listening to you, both concept is somehow pulling our attention from time-based compensation towards value creating, value added compensation.
Yeah.
At the moment, this is definitely not how we HR people are thinking.
No.
What would you say, how this would benefit just moving into these directions, making small steps into these directions? How would this benefit the companies? And how would this benefit the individual people working for them?
Okay, there is a list. We don't have time to
but maybe you
I will cherry pick a couple of examples. For example, when you pay someone to discover solutions for problems you're facing for the first time, for any design problem, you're basically paying people to stay in an office to find solutions. But often, I know as a designer, I know as a developer, I design architectures, and I know that it happens. Often, my best ideas come up when I'm in the shower on a Sunday morning. Is my contract going to compensate for that idea on a Sunday morning? By definition, it's not. And I think that enabling value-driven contracts in the HR world will basically allow for a continuous and maximize the flow of value that goes from the employees to the company, to the organization. And so basically we want to remove bottlenecks. We don't want to say, okay, if you got an idea between 9 to 5, then it's an idea that we can pay, or otherwise it's out of the scope. I mean, it makes no sense. We want to maximize the creativity of all the people involved so that they can deliver value anytime, any place, and we can give incentives for this to happen only if we remove the time from the equation. Otherwise, we are still there discussing extra time, for example. I need to be compensated for my extra time. I mean, okay, you're right, because there is a standard time. But what if all the time was considered extra time?
Indeed. And what if, we would all be paid for the value we are adding to? And this concept, it really mesmerized me years and years ago when we first met. And I remember how you were showing us at that time how you were working on projects and how you were actually delivering or sharing the profits of the project based on the value added by each individual.
Yeah.
How did that look like?
I mean, I still use it. I mean, to be fair, again, that was an idea that I came to know in Cocoon Project, which was a company I was collaborating with at the time. But and I learned this technique, which we were calling credit accounting. And I still use it. I'm a freelancer now, and I'm using credit accounting to regulate the compensation and the revenue share when I collaborate with other freelancers on it doesn't matter, even huge projects, by splitting all the value delivered in small tiny bits assigned to all the tasks that, I mean, whenever you work on a project, basically you're doing many things, hundreds of things, and all of those hundreds of things deliver a part of the value that you are delivering as a whole. And then you can estimate how much of the value you are attributing to every single task, and then you can estimate and assess, I would say, the contribution that everybody, each of the professionals which are involved, are contributing into the task. And basically what we do is that we define our earnings, our revenues for each of the professionals involved, ex post, a posteriori. So basically we deliver first, and then we say, okay, fine, of this delivery, how much is due to me and how much is due to you? And it's a lovely way to, I love the second order effects of this. The first one is that you are very rapidly, very quickly aligning the culture with those professionals. And you can tell if you mean value in the same way very early, which is a key problem. Whenever I saw my friends or even myself to give resignation from an employee position, it was always due to the late discovery of not being aligned with the culture of the company, which doesn't mean that they were wrong. It just means that we are not aligned. And the problem of alignment has to be spotted as early as possible, because that's the key. And with this system, we don't end up working with people we don't want to work anymore very quickly.
And just to share with you also, I don't know if I ever shared with you, just kind of learning about this experiment, what you did. I've actually started experimenting in my teams also. And this is maybe something what HR can also take into account, is that connecting it to money is a huge, big step, I think. But creating these conversations after completion of a project or after a completion of a sprint, now everybody's going agile, and having this conversation and giving feedback feed forward to each other. What do I think your real contribution was in this period of time or in this period of process might be actually a good way that starts aligning our way of thinking towards this way of looking at work.
That's the trigger, actually. And it's only dangerous if we only think of value in two big chunks. So if you split the chunks in very small time, that's the good exercise that you're mentioning. So you start defending your safety by splitting the value in smaller chunks, so that basically if everything goes busted, then it goes busted for that single tiny bit, and you are not putting all your projects, all your career at stake, which is what happens when you are a standard employee. So basically, either you stay, or either you go, you are fired. And instead, you can be fired in a single task. But if you start being fired on a task level, then you get robustness in your whole career, because you can sacrifice those single tasks to learn about the collaboration with the people you are collaborating with. And this is a whole point of, I've been into agile processes for 17 years now. And this is the key point of agile: getting feedback and making the time that you risk using the wrong way the shortest possible. In extreme contracts, we call it small cows in small boxes. You cannot remove cows, but you can chop it. And then you leave the cows fully, but in small bits that don't kill you.
Coolio. And I really hope that we managed to expand and and extend the thinking of the HR people who are going to participate in this program, do you have somehow a last message for them?
Yeah, because I mean, it's simply, it's the definition of agile that I love most. I mean, agile, like many fuzzy concept, as a somehow tricky definition. The definition I love most is the one provided by Claudio Perrone, a very good friend of mine living in Dublin. He says that, again, agile is the property of those systems or people that learn as frequently as possible. And learning only happens out of end-to-end experiences. So basically, for example, doing something and saying, my job is done, now it's yours. I mean, it's your. This is not learning. This is learning about a smaller scope. And you only learn about the validity of your job, of your work, only when the result of your work together and mixed with the result of the work of any other people you are collaborating with, no matter what the point in the pipeline, goes in the end of the final end users. And that's where the feedback comes from. And so if the final message is, no matter what the work you're doing, please evaluate the value of your work, not based on the effort and the sweat that you put in, but in the impact that you have on the people who are using the result of your work.
Coolio. Thank you very, very much, Jacopo.
Thanks to you.